Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel once again. I'm One Bright Ship, and in today's video I'll be sharing with you a few tips on how to keep motivated and how to deal with the lack of motivation that we can sometimes experience as artists and just as regular people. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, so let's get on with the video. In today's video I will share with you 5 tips that can help you, or that hopefully will help you to beat down being unmotivated or uninspired. And so for the first tip, we have to keep a motivation folder. A lot of artists like to do this technique because it's pretty easy and it's pretty effective as well. Most of the people that do this usually have a Pinterest account, and in there they create boards, and in these boards you can save any image that you find on Google, or on most of the websites they have this little Pinterest icon in which you can share them to your boards, or you can just directly download it to your computer or your device and then upload it directly to Pinterest. And the cool thing about this is that you can also browse through other people's Pinterest boards and maybe find something that will inspire you, as well as the things that you already have saved. And what you would want to save on those boards would be anything that keeps you motivated or that makes you feel a certain way. For example, if you're a lot into the ocean, then you can have a board with pictures of waves and of different, like, water from different oceans. And you don't really have to save only the stuff that you paint. For example, in my case, I don't necessarily would have to save only portraits, because if I didn't, then it would mean that I don't like portraits or something. No, it's just that you can really save anything that keeps you inspired. For example, for me, that would be pictures of flowers and of nature in general. I also enjoy my first share of portrait pictures, but I want you to understand that it's not a must to save as inspiration stuff that you do mainly on your paintings. And if you don't want to use Pinterest, then there's also some other ways that you could tackle this technique. One of them is, for example, to keep these folders on Instagram. And to do so, what you would want to do is go to the picture that you want to save, and then next to the heart and the comment icons to the far right, I believe, there's this icon that looks like a bookmark, and you would want to press that and it will save that picture to a private collection. Once you have them in there, you can also separate them in categories in case you want to keep everything extra organized. I'm really quite messy, so I don't do that often. I just save them if I like the images, and I don't really create any categories for them, but you can do so if you want to be a little more tidy. The cool thing about doing this on Instagram is that you can go back to those pictures that you saved and then, for example, look at more work of that artist or of that account, and it's oftentimes guaranteed that you will like the content that they're producing, since you liked one of their pictures, and most people keep a very cohesive feed. And yeah, that's one of the things you can do. Or if you like, you can just download those images that you found interesting on Google directly on your device, either your computer or your phone, and then create folders or something to keep them in one place. And then whenever you're feeling unmotivated or uninspired, you can go back and look at those pictures, and they will help you a lot, I believe. And you will see, if you try this pretty effective technique. This can also be very dangerous because you don't really want to compare yourself too much with other artists. This is the next tip that I have for keeping motivated. And sometimes we as artists look up to other artists and we feel like we don't, or we won't ever be at their level, because there's such a gap between their skill that we currently have and the skill that those people that we admire have. But what is important, I believe, is to remember that these people had to start somewhere, and they didn't just become magically good at something just overnight. And so you can really go down this spiral of negativity, of comparing yourself too much, because you have to remember that what you're seeing is oftentimes the end result of hours and hours and hours of practice. So it's never good to compare yourself, and if you catch yourself going down this path, then I suggest you to immediately take a break from that account that you're following or from that artist that you're following, and just stop looking at your work for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, until you start feeling better, or until you start understanding that you can't compare yourself to others that much, because, well, every person is different, and your development and your accomplishments and your process is going to be very different from any other artist. And until you understand that, then I suggest you to keep away from those accounts. I mean, if you can keep like the right mindset when looking at other people's work, then it's totally fine. If you wanna just have only artists' work as your motivation source, just make sure to not compare yourself too much, because that's oftentimes something that we artists do a lot and which can be very dangerous in the end. So this also relates to the third tip, which is to take a break if you need to. Sometimes we feel like art is something that we have to do every day in order to become better, because that's just how we've been told that we are going to improve, and if we don't practice daily, then we are not going to improve. And while this can be very true, it can also be very dangerous, because if you don't allow yourself to take breaks from time to time, then you're going to find yourself getting very anxious and just it's going to become very hard for you to keep motivated and inspired 24/7. So you have to understand that taking breaks is fine as long as you do it for short periods of time. That's also very important to note, because you can't just take breaks that last like 5 months or 5 years or pretty long time spans. You can do this if you don't really want art to be like a serious thing for you, if you're just doing them like as a hobby or as a side thing, and you don't really care about improving faster, then I guess it's okay to take longer breaks. But if you want to do this for a living, or if you want to take a more serious approach to your art, then taking more than 2 days of break, I feel like it's kind of dangerous, because it starts becoming a habit rather than just a simple break. So if you need to, then just take a break for 1 day or 2 days and then go back to whatever it is that you were painting. In my case, for example, I take breaks, but I don't stop drawing. Even if I don't want to draw, I will take a scrap piece of paper and just doodle with a pen, and that's just because that's my comfort zone. I'm pretty used to drawing portraits of females with pens, and so whenever I'm feeling down, or like I don't want to do any work, or I'm very disappointed at a piece that I'm doing, then what I would do is just get away from it and take a break from it for like 1 day. And in that day that I didn't advance further on the painting, I would just sit down and on a scrap piece of paper, like I said, I would just sketch down a portrait or something that I found comforting. It doesn't really have to be anything big, because sometimes when we do big stuff, we feel a little bit more committed than if we were just going to do a small sketch. So it's also important to keep it small so that you don't feel the pressure that it's going to have to be perfect. This also has to do with another concept to keep in mind when thinking about motivation, and is that if you see another artist like post these amazing sketches done in 5 minutes or so, you also have to remember that they only show you, or we only show you, what we want in social media. Like, we're not going to show you the ugly pieces, because, well, why would we if we can show you like the best of our work? Sometimes we're too scared of being judged for a bad drawing, like as if that's the only thing that we were able to produce, and so we try to stay straight from it. But you can be sure that all of the artists that you admire have a sketchbook full of ugly paintings and sketches and drawings, and that there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like sometimes we can get lost in wanting to draw pretty stuff, that we really put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and that can be a very dangerous thing to do as well, because if you don't allow yourself to make mistakes, or if you're too concerned to make a mistake, then nothing really is going to happen. Like, maybe you're not going to make a mistake, but you're not going to improve also, or you're not going to draw because you're too afraid of making mistakes. So also keep that in mind. Like, if you don't have a sketchbook, I would suggest you to have one. You can have 2 if you want, like one for ugly drawings and one for showing around and whatnot, but make sure that you have a sketchbook in which you can really mess up and not worry about it. Like, to think about it and know that it's going to be safe and that no one's going to see it and no one's going to judge you because of it. So that's also very important. And this leads me to my very final and 5th tip, which is to not be so hard on yourself, because we as artists sometimes are very perfectionists, and well, most of the time we take our art very seriously, and it's okay to do that if you want to improve. I mean, you obviously have to be very conscious about your work, but you can be worried about it 24/7, because it's just going to make you go down a road of negativity and losing motivation and losing the will to work, because you're going to start thinking like, why should I make an effort if every piece that I make it's turning out just awful? And you have to remember that in every piece there's something that you can salvage from it, or something that you're bound to like, because you can't just make only mistakes. It's 100% impossible. There has to be something that you liked in a painting that you did, and it's important to find these things that you liked and also look at the negative stuff so that you can improve on it. This doesn't mean that you have to like be full of yourself and think that you don't make mistakes and that every painting that you do is perfect, because that's also not a road that you want to go into, because ultimately you're not going to improve. But don't be too hard on yourself, just remember that. And if there's something that you don't like about the piece that you just did, then it's okay, because you can change it on your next piece, and that's what's going to make you improve. And so yeah, that was the very final tip. If there are any other tips that you would like to share, then make sure to leave a comment down below, and also like this video if you enjoyed it. And I post videos every Sunday, so subscribe if you want to see more of my work. And if you're interested in having a more behind the scenes look at my work, then you can totally go and check out my Instagram. I post in there daily, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you around next week.